guys, we are back. We're back. I'm Amanda Sapp here on Amazing 102.5 FM. And I have someone here who in studio with me. She is empathic. She is passionate. She is a lupus conqueror. She is Dr. Brooke Goldner. Great morning.
Great morning to you.
It's been so good having you in studio. Your story has been so inspiring already. We were talking about, before you left, how I asked you about how you, what led you to explore the connection between plant-based diets and healing lupus. Mm-hmm. But then you mentioned to us about how love helped you.
Yeah, it wasn't something I was looking for. I just wanted to be the best doctor I could be. And I was a good student and I learned well. And I learned all about the physiology of the body. I learned about medicines. I learned about procedures, but they don't teach us about diet or nutrition. And I'd also been taught since I was 16 by my doctors that I had an incurable disease. Mm-hmm. So there was never anything about diet. In fact, my kidney doctor once told me that pizza was the perfect food because it had all the food groups. Mm. So doctors really are woefully
going to eat pizza today.
Yeah, that's why I always tell my patients, which makes them laugh because obviously I'm a doctor. I always say if a doctor tries to give you nutrition advice, run. Like, do not listen to them. Because, this is my life's work and understanding it. And thanks to my medical background, I know how to interpret the information, but we're not taught that. Mm-hmm. But yes, I fell in love. I followed the plan. And what happened was I lost weight and for the first time, and at that point I'd been sick for 12 years and every month they tested my lab markers because I was scary. Between the kidneys would go and then mini strokes. And, I used to call myself the comeback kid. Like, I'm going to scare you. I'm going to get really sick, but then I'm going to come back, So, they watched me closely and suddenly for the first time ever, lupus markers were negative. So they thought it was a lab mistake. Mm-hmm. And they said, just go get married, come back, and we'll retest it because obviously this isn't your labs. And I went and I came back and the labs were even better. And my chronically high cholesterol since 21 that they said was genetic. My doctor literally said, nothing you can do, blame your parents. Yeah. Nothing to do with all the cheese I ate all day. That my cholesterol is like 155, So we didn't know what happened. And it didn't even cross my mind that I was lupus free. Yeah. I just knew I felt amazing. I was newly married. I was actually a resident, medical resident, living the dream I'd hoped to live long enough to be. And so I just was living my life. Yeah. And it wasn't until we did the impossible and I got pregnant with my first son, Solomon, who was here recently.
Yes, he was.
And when I got pregnant, they really thought that I was going to get sick. That for people with lupus, it's very dangerous. In fact, my husband didn't want me to get pregnant. He said he wanted me, and my mother was going to be a surrogate. I had a friend who wanted to be a surrogate, but I'd been healthy for 4 years at that point. And I said, I don't have disease.
Wait, let's go back.
Yeah.
Wait, 4 years healthy.
Yes.
All right. What were you thinking? What came through your mind after experiencing lupus for 12 years?
Yes.
And finally seeing and realizing and hearing that you were lupus free. Please take us back to that moment. How you felt, what you thought. Did you believe it yourself? I mean, tell me what you thought. It
didn't process. I didn't really think I'm lupus free because it's kind of this weird thing in medicine where since it's incurable, even if your labs are normal, you still have it. It's kind of this weird thing. Yeah. So it was like, I thought it was remission, but I'd been in remission before and you could always see my positive labs. I still had protein in my urine, but it was just kind of like, nobody knew what to think of it. And I was so busy. It was just like, okay, cool. Well, I feel great. I mean, I had a 6-pack. I was living life. So I just enjoyed feeling good. I'm always in the moment. So it didn't really dawn on me until the pregnancy. I had to fight for it, because I said 4 years lupus free in terms of my labs. And I remember when I got pregnant, my doctor said, tell me your health history. And I told my gynecologist that I used to have lupus. She goes, excuse me, no, nobody used to have lupus. Sent me to the high-risk OB. The high-risk OB sent me back, said, this is the healthiest person I've seen. Like, there's nothing wrong. And so they waited the whole pregnancy for me to get sick. And I never did. I didn't take medicines. I never had a relapse. Solomon was born perfect. He was butt first, so I had to get a C-section. And you met him, like butt first, that's him. So I had to have
an amazing kid, by the way.
Thank you. But he, so I had to have a C-section and they were all anticipating when's she going to get sick? And I didn't. I felt great. Like the day of the C-section, I'm walking around. I went home. I had a quick recovery. I made enough milk to feed him and donate to women who didn't have breast milk. I never had any downside.
You're being philanthropic.
Oh, yeah. I am. I donated breast milk from both my kids. I produced like I could feed a whole village. And then I was back to my pre-pregnancy genes 9 days later. So my husband did a full photo shoot we still had. He goes, this proved my theory of metabolism. But that's when we realized, wait a minute, maybe metabolism is not just about weight. Maybe it has something to do with cellular recovery, because why don't you have lupus right now? And that's when we realized, and it was this beautiful miracle of holding this precious baby that never should have been. And then realizing that I still have my health. We had each other. We had a future. And so we said, you know what, this is what we're meant to do. So we both, we went ahead and studied it. We wanted to understand, how does nutrition really affect cellular repair, the immune system? And only when we understood it and could reproduce it, we took volunteers from the Lupus Foundation. Only when we could reproduce it did we bring it to the public, because we didn't want it to be do what I did. And we didn't know if it was because of that or was it some other miracle, right? It had to be reproducible and it had to be scientific. And then we decided to give it to the public for free. So I've released my protocols to the public. I do free Q&As with the public. We've helped thousands of people worldwide reverse not just lupus, but other autoimmune diseases because of the gift I was able to have.
There is this light at the end of the tunnel hearing your story, when not only did they think you were going to die in 6 months when you were 16 or I'm sorry,
Yes,
was it
16, yeah.
And then here you are, then you find love. You explain to your significant other what your situation is for the time. And then you have a kid, and they said you weren't supposed to have no kid.
Yes.
Not only do you have one kid, but now you have two.
Yes.
So, like, how does it make you feel knowing that you are defeating the odds?
I wake up every day just excited and happy. Even when I was pregnant, it's funny. I throw up a lot pregnant. I'm one of those that's nonstop throwing up. Tom knows I've thrown up on him in parking lots, in Walmart. I just can't stop. But when he said he's never seen anybody smile when they throw up. But it wasn't vomit from chemo. It's like, I'm pregnant. I'm going to be a mom. Like, I am just irrepressibly happy all the time.
Yes.
And it's just an amazing thing. I'm in goosebumps constantly, especially doing the work and helping other people heal. Like, I meet people who are sick, and then I get to celebrate their recovery. I give every single one of my patients my cell phone number so they can text me if they need anything or want to tell me good news. I'm ecstatic all the time.
This is so good.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Yes.
You know, it's hope. You're giving people hope.
Yeah. Hope and health in their life.
Girl.
Like, to me, being a doctor is not about disease or symptoms, but it's about letting people live what their life mission is. And I help people get healthy enough to be what they were meant to be.
Let me get to my questions here, because you get me. I'm all in your eyeballs right now. I'm so deep in. I'm immersed in this conversation. When we talk about disease reversal,
yes,
it can sometimes sound too good to be true. How do you explain the science behind how a plant-based diet can lead to actual reversal of lupus symptoms?
Okay, well, disease reversal is actually very natural. I mean, think of it this way. So right now I have a Band-Aid on my finger, right?
Okay, yes.
That's because on Sunday I was overly aggressive at chopping veggies, and I sliced this finger right open. It looked like a smile. It was open, right? I'm making people cringe, but it was open. It was bleeding, right? Now, I did not sew it. I did not do anything to it. I just put the Band-Aid on it, and it's closing. It's almost closed. It did it all by itself. It reversed the damage, because every cell in our body is actually programmed to recover, repair itself. So chronic illness is only going to occur because we are either doing something to make it worse, like if I kept picking at this, or because we are malnourished of the ingredients our body uses to repair damage. So the malnourishment is the biggest issue, and that's what our protocol is. It's hyper-nourishment. It's an overdose of nutrition. So it is plant-based, but it's not any plant-based diet. It's not like eat a bowl of beans, recover, but it's a specific protocol that allows people to get the nutrients they need so their body can repair the damage. And that's really all it is. So it's not something that's difficult to understand, because everybody's experienced it. You get a cold, you recover, right? You get a cut, you recover. So if you get sick and can't recover, then there's something missing or something you're doing to make it worse. And that's really what I teach people.
Could you walk us through the journey of a lupus patient who has successfully reversed their symptoms through a plant-based diet? What were the key milestones and changes they experienced?
God, I need to pick one person.
One.
Oh, goodness gracious. There's so many. Well, I'll pick people who have definitely shared their stuff online. Okay. Well, can you give me a tissue? Because once I start crying, it just comes out of my nose. And so that's just.
And why are you crying, by the way?
Just happiness. Like everything I feel, you see, it just comes out of my face. So yes. So thank you for not letting me drip. But there's so many of them. But some of the people who have shared their stories online would be like Rachel. She came to me when she was pregnant. She was a month away from her C-section. And she had one child, but she had lupus and Sjogren's, another autoimmune disease. And that's what happens with autoimmune. You start collecting them like you need suitcases to drag them with you, you know? And so she had multiple autoimmune diseases, and she'd had multiple miscarriages that landed her in the hospital, so that she was continuously sick. So she was terrified. She was already on bed rest, and she was so scared that if she had this baby, she wouldn't be able to leave the hospital with the baby. So she read my book about lupus. She called me up. I put her on something called Rapid Recovery, where you work with me every day. All right, every day for 4 weeks. You needed a Jewish mother looking over your shoulder every day. What did you eat? How did you sleep? How you feeling every day? And by the end of the 4 weeks, she was teaching her younger kid how to fly a kite running through the park. She had her baby with no problem. She was considered lupus and Sjogren's free. She was taking off all of her medicines, and it's been, goodness, over 5 years now. She's had another baby since then and has never had a relapse. And she just gets to look forward to living her life. And the cool thing is, after that happened to her, her mother-in-law went into heart failure. Her husband took the blender of green smoothies I teach people to make to get that hyper-nourishment. He took it to the ICU. 5 days later, she walked out of the hospital when the doctor said to come to the hospital, say goodbye. She's now fine. And then the husband got diabetes because he was eating his feelings because his mom and his wife.
For sure.
And then within 5 weeks, he was no longer diabetic. And so, you know, they now raise their kids on the same diet that healed mom and grandma and dad. So we can stop this. You know, that kids are getting sicker and sicker every generation, but we can stop it. And so now their kids are going to not have all of these diseases that their family had.
Y'all see my face, my eyes. People get squint when they look at you sideways, like, this is the skepticism look. Yeah. You know, but this story that you're sharing is like, okay, maybe there's some truth to this.
Oh, absolutely. And I have the pictures, I have the lab tests. I can't show them all now, but it is wonderful because it's not about autoimmune disease. When you feed your body the right nutrients, it knows how to repair itself. I'm not telling my finger what to do. It's doing the job. I just make sure that I'm healthy enough that it can do it.
Now, this kind of goes with what I'm talking about with the skepticism. What would you say are the most compelling pieces of evidence or research that support the potential for achieving this with a plant-based approach?
Gosh, there is so much out there. I mean, there's a huge amount of evidence that has already been studied in terms of heart disease. So you look at Ornish and other folks who have published where they've shown that you can actually take back some of the hardening of the arteries. And I've helped people, as I said, with heart failure. There was some really interesting studies done, especially during COVID, looking at the immune system. One of them was in the British Medical Journal, where they looked at first responders during the first wave of COVID. So we had no treatments. We didn't know what it was. You know, remember how bad that was. And somebody thought to look at what are the diets of the doctors and nurses on the front lines and who's getting sick. And what they found was in this first wave that doctors and nurses that identified as plant-based or vegan had over 73% less cases of moderate to severe COVID than everybody else. And those that identified as high protein diets like paleo or keto had almost 50% higher rates of COVID. So what they were looking at is, one of the things they concluded was maybe it's the nutrients, because there's no nutrients in animal products. And that's true. But what they didn't address, which is a lot of what I do, is the deleterious or dangerous effects of animal products on the immune system. And it was showcased by the people who were in the middle, who were pescatarians, who ate mostly vegetables. So they got nutrients, but a little bit of meat from fish. And they had about 50% less cases than everybody else. So they lost they lost 20% of the protection just by adding a little bit of an animal product. So that's one case that shows just how well the immune system functions when you're on just plants and a little bit of meat versus mostly meat, right? And now John Hopkins has done studies that show cruciferous vegetables kill cancer cells in vitro. They also stop the replication of the flu virus and COVID virus, just cruciferous vegetables, which is the mainstay of our hyper-nourishment program. So the nourishment allows your cells to function properly because they need those nutrients, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. You need omega-3s for your cell function, but it will not only help you repair damage, but it actually helps your immune system function properly.
As a medical doctor, you've likely encountered cases where traditional medical treatments fall short. How do you approach conversations with patients who might have lost hope in conventional approaches, but are curious about the potential of disease reversal through a plant-based lifestyle?
Well, that's the people who come to me now, right? So back when I first started, there was some resistance because I'm coming to you for medicine. Why are you asking me what I eat? Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Now people come to me because it's funny. What I hear every single day is, I hate doctors. And then they go, no offense. So most people coming to me are already sick of the medical system, mostly because there's never an end to it. That if you're lucky, the medicines can help with your symptoms. If you're unlucky, they don't, and you continue on. Like I was lucky. Chemo saved my kidneys. It took 2 years plus high dose steroids and everything else. I took 7 pills a day for 2 years. But like Selena Gomez had chemotherapy and she still needed a transplant. So the medical system is hit or miss. The medicines can help you, but the side effects can be difficult, right? But many people, they want to be well, and there's no path to wellness in the medical world. So what I tell people is I'm not telling you to not use your medicines or listen to your doctors. I still am a Western doctor. I will use medicines to save lives. But then I want to talk about how do we get you healthy again? And that can be a part of any program. You could take your herbs, you can take your medicines, but let's actually give your body the tools it needs to fix itself. And let's see how healthy you can actually be.
I love this. Happiness and healing. When you came in here, you fired off at all this inspiration and just like talk about your Holocaust and then your mom and just all these people who are resilient.
Yes.
What part do you think happiness and healing does? What part do you think happiness plays in the healing process?
Well, happiness is healing. I mean, it is good for your health. Voltaire said that, and it is absolutely true. So they've actually done studies showing that stress, trauma, depression, anxiety create inflammation in the body. When you're in mourning, your inflammation markers are so high, they mimic someone with autoimmune disease. And a lot of people get sick right after a divorce, someone dies, they're super stressed, they moved, right? And something traumatic happens is often one of the final triggers to something that they were developing. And so what I found in helping people is that people who are already happy, like the person I talked about, Rachel, who was pregnant and excited, happy, loved her husband, loved her life, but just sick, died alone, worked. But for many people I see, they're extremely sick, not only because of their diet, but because they've been traumatized, they're depressed, they're anxious. And I realized that in order to get those people well, I had to help them with all of those things. And so I teach people resilience and joy. And for many people, that's what they tell me is that it's great not to have lupus. It's great not to be in pain, but the happiness is what changed my life. And it's something you need to learn. I mean, I learned it. I came from, my grandmother I have her personality, bubbly, talkative, loves people. And she used to call herself a lucky girl. She was a Holocaust survivor. She was 16 when the Holocaust started, and she starved and suffered. I mean, she went through horrific brutality and considered herself, non-ironically, a happy person. And one of the key stories that I think it really shows who she was, and this is how I live my life, is that when the war ended, she'd been starving and sick for 2 years, people know the Holocaust, right? And so my grandfather and her were together. They dropped them off at a train station when the war ended. Go home, right? So it was just unceremonious. And she said they were all emaciated with the swollen bellies, barely alive. And so you got to imagine they'd spent 2 years suffering. They were sent to a train station to go home, but they don't even know if they have a home to go to, right? So this is it's like a moment that's almost hard to celebrate because it's like you're free, but you're so sick and you don't know what you're coming back to. And she said they were all standing around this train station and someone on the other side of the train station started playing music and she started dancing. And I said, Grandma, how did you dance? And she goes, because Brooksy, then you hear music, you dance. And her ability to be present, that she wasn't in the past of the horror she just suffered, and she wasn't worried about the future of what she was going to see or live. She was in the moment with the music. And that's the key to happiness. If we can be here in this moment, then there's joy, there's happiness, there's hope. And so that is one of those key skills that sometimes you have to look for the music, but it's always there and we can find it. And I know in my worst moments, in my worst pain, I would obsessively think of everything I was grateful for until I cried from gratitude instead of pain. And that's what got me through those times. And it happens to be a symptom of happy people is obsessively gratitude. Obsessing on gratitude. Yeah.
Dr. Brooke Goldner here in the building at Amazing 102.5 FM. Really quickly, can you share with us this book? And then we have to wrap this interview up.
Yes, absolutely. So I got Goodbye Lupus, which is my story of recovery and how I met that beautiful man over here. Goodbye Autoimmune Disease is case studies in reversing autoimmune disease and the mental work people need to do to get happy and get past self-sabotage and all that stuff. And I give out free information every day. If you don't want to read the book, you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at Goodbye Lupus. I'm on every Wednesday doing live Q&As for the public all around the world. I'm constantly putting stuff out there to help people just do it. You'll never regret eating vegetables, right? Just do what you need to do to go out and get that life of yours. You'll be happy you did.
And what are you doing with National Psoriasis Month?
So it is National Psoriasis Awareness Month. And what I want people to aware of is not just what the illness is, but also, it's rashes. It can turn into arthritis, but also what you can do. And that's really about giving your body what it needs. There was an interesting study I talked about the other day where they fed mice this, like the Western diet. So they gave them like mini like cheeseburgers, fries, and a milkshake basically, and they developed psoriasis plaques. So we have to consider some of the most important thing we can do for our health every day is going to be what we put in our mouth. And there's so much hope where you can feel better just by taking better care of yourself through diet, good rest, good self-care. All of those things make a greater impact on your health than anything else, really.
Dr. Brooke Goldner, please leave us with something inspiring and empowering, something we can take with us the rest of the day, the rest of the weekend, all the way up to the weekend.
No matter what you've done today, right now is the best moment where you can start doing something better for yourself. And if you can't do it for yourself, do it for the people who love you, who need you to be in their life, because that matters. Those people out there who need you to be well, think about them and eat well and take care of yourself for them too.
How do we find you?
GoodbyeLupus.com or Goodbye Lupus on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Really appreciate you being my guest here today. Very inspiring. Really, really thank you for your time today. Our next song coming up is I'm Yours by Jason Mraz. Guys,
I love that song.
Stay tuned in. Stay amazing. We'll be right back.